Good morning, everyone. My name is Simon Hamilton. I'm the Chief Executive of Belfast Chamber, and you're very welcome to this morning's event, which is entitled Improving Workplace Wellbeing. Ensuring that we look after the mental well-being and resilience of our teams is always important, but never more so than in the past year. Over the course of the next hour, with the help of our speakers, we're going to explore what workplace wellbeing is and look at some best practices to how you can improve workplace wellbeing in your business. We're delighted to be able to partner with one of Northern Ireland's leading workplace wellbeing solutions providers at Inspire Workplaces. And very soon we'll hear from Group Director of Professional Services at Inspire, John Conaghan. We're also going to hear from two Belfast Chamber members, Gavin Annon of Mount Charles and Sinead Carville of Fintree, are going to talk about how their businesses have prioritised mental well-being during the COVID-19 crisis. We have a question and answer function, and I'm sure a lot of what John and Gavin and Sinead say today will spark questions that you might have. So please feel free to put those far away in that question and answer function, which is at the bottom of your screen. And I'll put as many of them as I possibly can to John, Sinead and Gavin at the end of our presentations today. It's great to be delivering today's event in partnership with Inspire Workplaces, and I'm now going to hand over to John to tell us a little bit more about Inspire Workplaces and how they can help businesses like yours to improve mental well-being in your business, and also to tell us a little bit more about workplace well-being and what it means. Thank you, John.
Good morning, Simon, and good morning, everybody. Simon, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to everybody this morning. What is a beautiful morning. Speakers, we were all arguing and fighting over who brought the sunshine this morning. I said it was me. Gavin might say it was him. I'm sure Sinead will too. But it's lovely on a Friday, on a beautiful Friday morning, to be able to talk to everybody. And I always appreciate the chance to come and talk about workplace well-being at any time. As Simon has alluded, some of you may be aware of us as Inspire, some may not. I look after Inspire Workplaces, which is part of a much larger charity. Inspire is a charity. We're an all-Ireland mental health, addiction, learning disability and autism charity, providing social care support services right across the island of Ireland. Our work as Inspire Workplaces as a social enterprise, and we exist as a social enterprise within the charity, enables us to support some of the social care work that we do. And I'll talk a little bit as I go through the presentation around the wider context of the organisation. My role this morning is really just to set a bit of context for Sinead and Gavin, who are going to talk obviously a lot more practically about the realities of organisations and how they've dealt with mental health and wellbeing within the pandemic and indeed beyond. And I think it's important to start off with, when we think about a definition of mental health, there's various definitions out there, but I like the one that comes from World Health Organization, which talks about, us being as individuals able to realize our own potential, cope with normal stresses of life, work productively and fruitfully, and make a contribution to our communities. And I think it's probably fair to say that every aspect of that normal definition of mental health has been challenged over this last 12 months in relation to the pandemic. We are not dealing with normal stresses of life. We're not feeling that we are acting or unable to be as productive as we'd like to be. And we certainly have not been able to contribute as much as we would like to our community. So this has been a huge challenge. But again, remember that the issue of mental health and wellbeing at work has always been a challenge, has been a challenge before the pandemic, and is likely to be a significant challenge even more so as we come out of this. If you look at some of the stats, even from the last couple of years from the HSE, where we know that depression and anxiety accounts for 44% of work-related ill health and over 50% of days lost in the workplace. And this is not just about sickness absence, but it is about significant impact on investment through staff turnover, reduced engagement of staff, high levels of presenteeism as well. So it's always been an issue and is likely to continue to be an issue. But when we've looked at COVID, and again, for everyone that's on here today, we've all had a different experience of COVID-19 and the pandemic. There is no singular experience. We've had all sorts of issues with social distancing and self-isolation, and that's had a huge impact on a lot of people, especially some of our elderly population, our families. We've had real difficulties in terms of being able to see and connect with families. People are naturally being worried worried about the virus itself in terms of family, friends, and catching it. And as we know, over 2,000 people have lost their lives due to pandemic, and families have not been able to go through the normal process of grieving, the whole process of having the wakes and funerals and normal bereavement process. And that's been hugely difficult for a lot of people. And of course, the ongoing concerns, as we all know, about job security, again, much more acute for a lot of people concerned. We've had so many doors opened during the pandemic and then shut down again. And we're almost fearful now, aren't we, about talking about the next step and the next future. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. And we've got people working all sorts of different irregular hours. We're not working from home anymore. We're living at work. People are trying to combine the issue with homeschooling. I don't know whose smiles were bigger started this week, the parents or the children, in terms of going back to school. But for those of you who have children going back to school, you know the impact that has had. So it's been a massive challenge for people in terms of just that work-life balance. So a lot of the things that we have seen and experienced as ourselves as an organization, as well as the support that we've given to others, has really been about encouraging organizations, and especially senior leaders in organizations, to talk openly, honestly, and regularly about mental health and well-being and the challenge of mental health and well-being. Most of my work, when I go out and talk to organizations now, we talk a lot about culture. And I think that the pandemic has really brought culture to the forefront. We talk a lot about psychologically safe culture, and a psychologically safe culture in any workplace is led from the top down. It's where the senior leaders not only are talking openly and honestly about the impact on mental health and well-being to staff and to employees, but to themselves as well. I talk a lot with my team, all the time in relation to how I'm coping personally, because I've gone through periods of doubt throughout this last year. When we sat this time last year thinking, what business will we have in 12 months' time? What's the impact going to be? What's the impact going to be on income? What's the impact going to be on staff? So regular communication. I would have a daily senior management team meeting. We have weekly team meetings with the individual teams. I'm doing quarterly catch-ups with the whole broader team. We're reaching out regularly to our network of associate counsellors, about 300 or 400 across Ireland. Our CEO is doing video messages. We have a weekly Well I Am internal wellbeing campaign with our wellbeing champions and communication champions. Keeping that talk high and keeping it visible that mental health and wellbeing is a core issue for the organization, and you as individuals and leaders. And I also mean you as individual leaders, because many of you today, are senior individuals within your organizations. Think about yourself as well, and think about how you're reaching out and getting support. So we've been offering a lot of support in the form of online one-to-one coaching, guidance, and training. Again, we have moved everything from a standing point of almost zero in terms of most of our work was face-to-face to move it all online. And we're currently delivering about 75 or 80% of our normal capacity of work, and we're doing it all online. Our counselling's been delivered online and telephone, and we're doing a huge amount now of coaching and training within the construction industry, emergency services, the education sector, civil service, universities and colleges with Queen's and the colleges. We are all now delivering our services online. I spoke recently, we just launched a program with the Education Authority, and I was speaking to over 100 school principals, where we're now doing a one-to-one online coaching program, personal and professional development wellbeing program for school principals and their senior leadership teams as well. So that's been something that we've seen has had a big impact in terms of looking around, seeing what resources you can access online in terms of support, and adapting flexible working policies and opportunities to change and reduce hours. I have a lot of the guys, we've had 4 babies born within our team in professional services. There isn't a day goes by that our MS Teams meetings aren't joined by babies and toddlers. So my guys, there's a lot of flexibility around allowing the guys to work around what they need to do. Some of them are working early in the morning, taking a couple of hours in the afternoon to spend time with the kids, whether it's homeschooling or just spending time with them, and then coming back and doing a bit of work in the evening. So we're not clocking in and clocking out. And it's interesting, again, I have found nothing has been dropped, nothing has been missed, and we've achieved most of the things that we wanted to achieve this year. So just to give, again, some key thoughts around thinking about resilience in difficult times. And again, all of these these principles are absolutely valid at any time of the year, in or out of a pandemic. Strong relationships, keeping connected with individuals as much as you possibly can, getting out and walking, even the local parks and places where you can potentially bump into and have a chat with friends and people that you might see in the local community. The key thing about this is a bit of acceptance. You know, challenge, change, difficulties is part of life. None of us saw this coming. None of us had a blueprint. I did ask the school principals last week, could someone show me the file they took off the shelf this time last year that had the whole plan for how we're going to deal with this. So the challenge for a lot of people is, don't be too hard on yourself. Stay positive about things and control what you can. The only thing you can control is right here, right now, what's happening today, some short-term plans over the next period of time. We don't know what it's going to be like next week, next month, or 6 months down the line. So stay in control of what you can and keep things in perspective. Our lead mindfulness practitioner, Frank, has a great phrase, which he allows me to use regularly, where he says that, you know, reality is often kinder than your thoughts. We worry a lot. We stress a lot. The counselors will say, people say things like, I'm stressed. Well, stress isn't something you are. It's something you think, because you're worrying about the impact of a situation and what the impact is likely to be on you and others. So keep things in perspective. And as I mentioned, look after yourself. This is a really key thing. You looking after yourself and encouraging all of your staff and employees to look after yourselves as well. Seek support for mental health. There's loads of information out there online, as well as friends, colleagues, and others who have positive relationships. Look after yourself, take your breaks, annual leave. We've been encouraging people, and we have been absolutely really hard on this. People take their annual leave and get away from the laptop, get away from the computer, get some time to take some time off. And look after yourself in terms of understanding when you maybe are not feeling as well as you could be. You know that your mental health is maybe being impacted. Be honest about it and be able to speak up and talk about it and reach out and get that help and support. It's hugely important. And a lot of that is based around our 5 ways to well-being. And we talk a lot about this. I've talked about, you know, connecting, being active, giving time with yourself, getting out. Even like today, where we talk about a beautiful day, I hope many of us are thinking about getting out as soon as the working day is over and getting a walk and spending some time and getting out and taking notice of what's going on around you, because that's hugely important. We have launched an online support hub a couple of years ago with Inspire Workplaces, and it's been a huge success. And again, you know, with us not realizing the impact that online resources we're going to require. But again, we've got people doing things like online self-assessments, which leads itself through into our online CBT programs. Our 5 ways to well-being database is in our hub, where again, even though you can't necessarily get out physically and do a lot of things, we've put a lot of virtual ways to connect. And this year we actually worked with the PHA and Department of Communities to develop the COVID-19 community response hub. And we've had about 40,000 people have visited that site. I'll put some details up on that and share that with you later on as well. But covidwellbeingni.info is a free website that is available to the general public, and it has so much information, not just about mental health and well-being, but practical advice and guidance around being a carer, or financial advice, or general health and well-being information. So covidwellbeingni.info is a fabulous online resource that everybody can look at. So I'm going to finish up by just encouraging you all to think about, you know, what is the end-to-end solutions that you have within your organization? Are you auditing well-being, you know, and looking at the specific needs of your organization in terms of mental health and well-being? Are you building and investing in that capacity for online manager training and employee training around resilience, compassion, empathy, and psychological safety? Have the services available. Look at what else you need, and make sure you're doing regular campaigns. Make sure you're talking about it openly, honestly, and making sure it's very visible and leading from the top. So Simon, I'm going to stop there because I know the guys are going to move on next. And then obviously any questions at the end, happy to help with any questions as well.
Super, John, that was brilliant. Really, really helpful run through, a lot of really good information for people there. I'm sure there will be questions about what you have said there. So we encourage anybody and everybody to ask questions of John, or indeed Gavin and Sinead after their presentations, to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We thought it would be useful to build on what John had said and that kind of outline and introduction to workplace wellbeing and in the new context of COVID-19 to talk to a couple of our member businesses about how they have responded, what they have done, what steps and what measures they have put in place to look after their teams in a very difficult period. And we've got two businesses who are in very different sectors and have had to respond very, very differently to the pandemic. So we're going to start off with Gavin Annon. Gavin is the Sales and Marketing Director at Mount Charles, and I think everybody knows Mount Charles or has seen Mount Charles or availed of their services one way or the other, and we know that they're one of Ireland's largest Indigenous support services organisations with lots of employees and lots of locations, not just across Belfast, but right across the region, right across the island. So Gavin, it's over to you to tell us a little bit about how Mount Charles has responded to the pandemic in terms of looking after your team's mental well-being. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. I'll just get this shared for us here. Okay. Grant. Hopefully you can all see that. Great. Well, listen, good morning, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm on after John, which is a tough act to follow given his passion about what he was speaking today, but I'll do my very best. And he did steal that sun is shining line off me, but we'll debate that one later. But it is ironic that with a bit of sunshine, there is light at the end of the tunnel with everything that's been a pretty traumatic year all around. So hopefully we can bring a bit of inspiration and happiness today. As Simon mentioned, I'm Gavin Annon, so I'm Sales and Marketing Director at Mount Charles Group, and part of the family who own the company, which we're exceptionally proud of. And we've had a hell of a journey over the past year with the ups and downs, and hopefully some of the stuff I covered today gives a bit of insight about how practically you can apply mental health and well-being in the workplace. So just a little bit of background of us. We're primarily a catering and support services company, and we're 32 years young this year, which has been a great journey so far. We're Ireland wide, and we have a little bit of business in GB, but here is primarily our home. And given the nature of our business, we were considered an essential business throughout this pandemic, which meant that we had to ask a lot from our employees and our team members across the estate to be on the battle line each and every day in very, very difficult circumstances. And that has proved challenging, as it has been for many companies across the industries. But one thing that we're really proud of is that we're family owned, and with that we make sure that people feel that they're extended members of our family, and we put the mental health and well-being at the very heart of our company. So I came across this quote recently, and it's one that we've brought into the company, that's about mental health and well-being and the impact that it's having, and also the shadowness that it's creating with people, where they feel that there's nowhere to turn to. And happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light. Now, it's easy to hide in a corner and hope everything goes away, but what we have found recently is that if we can give people that safe environment and the opportunity to speak, and that it is okay to mention that things aren't going quite rightly, and John was completely right in his early intro, that this is from top down. So we've got to make sure that the leaders and our management team equally are sharing problems and difficulties that they're having, because if they can create that level of comfort with their team members, it gives them a chance to speak up. And one story I came across recently on the right hand side from UTV was that this is only the beginning. Like, we are literally in the middle of a mental health pandemic, and we're going to see a surge in demand for services when lockdown ceases and there's further job losses and difficulties to come. So the road bumps by no means are over, but all we can do as a company is make sure we're there for our team members the best that we can be. So I created a little bit of a map here just to show you what our journey looked like from the unfortunate March 2020, which I think everyone will agree seems a lifetime ago, but it's happened and it's here, unfortunately. But as soon as the problem landed, we made sure two things. We had to save the company, and we had a number one priority for us was to protect as many jobs as possible. So we stuck by what we call our 2Cs, and what we did there was that cash was the first one. So without cash, the company simply can't function. And the other C that we made sure to stick by was communication. So whether it was good updates, bad updates, or in between updates, we made sure to communicate. And we were honest from day one. So we told our team members when we communicated with them what was going well, what wasn't going so well, which units we were hoping to get reopened and get people back to their workplace, and which ones that may not have the chance to survive. And giving that degree of honesty really helped us gain respect with our team members. And finally, thankfully, we got to a position where we were able to stabilize the company and maintain positivity, which was a great result for us. So we were so glad we were able to do that for our team members. The other thing that we felt worked really well for us was the type of communication and marketing that we were using to talk to our team members and our management team. Given we had to socially distance, we had to digitally get together. And what we did was we put our key members of our team front and center of cameras on a regular basis, and we give video updates. So that was messaging that was happening with contracts, with renegotiations, and just general activity across the company. Because again, we had to stay apart, but it was important that we were filling in the gaps and telling people on a regular basis what was going on. We then had the ability to analyze that data. So we were able to see who watched the videos, how long were they watching for, when did they hit the stop button and drop off. And ironically, we found that in the first batches of videos that we done, they actually were slightly too long. So we were able to adjust the messaging and make it a bit more quick hitting, so that when we did communicate, we felt all the information was there in a time frame that was relevant to our team members. And lastly, we set up a dedicated email resource that give our team members an opportunity to ask confidentially for difficulties that they might have had, so that we could get back to them and give them a bit of reassurance. John mentioned at the top of the call about COVID Wellbeing NI, and we had to put this all into a bit of a structure. So we've recently launched a dedicated resource for our employees using the COVID Wellbeing NI structure, which we think is fantastic. So the 5 ones that we've got to connect, so making sure that everyone talks and listens to each other, give your time and your words and most importantly, your presence if you can, and take notice then of the simple things that give you joy and put a smile on your face. You've got to stay happy. Keeping learning is the other message we've been pumping out there, that you surprise yourself and seek opportunities. This is a part of a bigger strategy for us. And lastly, be active, get the heart pumping, move your moods and do what you can to be happy. And we've tied this back into our brand then to say that, you know, mental health and well-being is at the heart of our company. And even the very use of our logo, which you'll see here, we're able to turn it on its side and bring a happy face. So, you know, we're making it all very, very relevant and achievable, that we're there for our team members the best that we can. So as I said, we've just recently launched a dedicated resource now to centralize all this information in one place, which we have found very, very successful, because it's important that our team members know where to go when they have a problem. So we set up a separate portal on our website recently that gives our employees the opportunity to touch in and see what's available for them to relate to, and hopefully get the help and advice that they need to. We're committing to this for future support. As I said at the top of my presentation, that this is only the start of a long-term problem that we need to stay committed to. But lastly, we're reminding our team members that health and well-being for sure is a big issue right now that we all have to stay fully committed to, but this is part of our bigger people strategy. So it's an element of, you know, career development and identifying key talent and looking at opportunities where we can move our great people through our company to do even better things. So it's maintaining positivity, but equally trying to fight the mental battles that people have and making sure that they know that we're there for them. Again, going back to what I said at the start about being honest, we aren't mental health experts. That's a given. Okay, we're a catering and support services company, but we have a lot of passionate people who care very deeply. So what we've been able to do is identify mental health ambassadors and champions within our team who can be there and identify people who potentially need that support. We've also instructed some of our management team and employees to attend courses that will hopefully develop their foresight in mental health and well-being, one of which is New Leaf, which is fantastic, and we've found great results from that already. We do have a number of mental health first aiders qualified across the company, so again, we've got eyes and ears in certain places where we feel it's useful, and indeed it might give us the chance to find and identify those individuals who do need the help. We're on a further journey as well about developing mindful training and listening and well-being buddies, and talking about mental health. As I say, you've got to have that voice and give people the chance to talk about it. And lastly, on this dedicated resource, which we've just recently launched, we've integrated an interactive calendar. So this gives our employees an opportunity to subscribe to specific events that they feel is relevant to them. And we're finding that particularly useful because we don't want to bombard our team members with too much information about certain problem solving when it comes to mental health. So that's been really, really important to us. But the calendar shoots out to all of our strategic partners then in the mental health and wellbeing industry. Because as I said, we're not mental health experts, but we know that there are plenty of professionals out there who can give really sound advice and direction to those who need it most. And lastly, then, we've made sure to pull this together into a campaign. So as I said, this is a long-term commitment for us, and we've got to make sure that everyone knows we're here for them as long as we have to be. And we've managed to run this right down now to December, and we've strategically put this in a way that's easy to understand, but it's got relevance throughout the rest of the year for our team members. So we've created a theme for each month, and then we've also attached a buzzword and a color as well. So the buzzword will help the theme make good relevance and gives us that marketing information that we can use across the estate. And then we've also implemented a color then for each of those months so that we can brand it and make sure that this is what we're celebrating. And if you need help relating to that theme, here's all of the information that you need to pay attention to that can hopefully help you out. Lastly, we don't have all the answers either. So what we're doing is engaging with our team members for future events. And as part of our wellbeing steering groups, we're finding out what are the core problems out on our company that we need to pay attention to. And that's been particularly useful because, again, we've got the structure and all those strategic partners in place, but there could be core problems out there that you don't actually know about until you get under the bonnet and make sure you pay attention to them. So you've got to keep your eyes and ears open the best that you can to make sure that this calendar is what our team members need. Lastly, we tried to have fun as well across the past year, which is still shocks me every time that I say it's been a year, but unfortunately it has been. And what we actually found at the very start of the pandemic was that we had surplus stock for some food products that we couldn't serve in our units because they were closed. And ironically, at a time of need, we find a lot of our team members felt that they had to reach out and help other people, which was an extraordinary feeling to witness because it just shows you how much care and compassion is out there, even when people are struggling themselves. So you'll see on a number of the photos, we made up little food packs and we delivered them to homeless charities, a few mental health charities, and we also rewarded key members across our estate who were working again in very, very difficult conditions. And it was only right that we recognized that. So we made little goodie bags for them, got their pictures taken, celebrated them on social media, and it was really rewarding for them to see it. We had really good fun stuff like Christmas bingo, and we also had quizzes, etc., and bake-offs. So we did all that we can to come together safely, but making sure that we stayed connected in the best way that we can. So just to conclude, I'm really, really proud of what we've done and the achievements that we've made over the past year. This isn't over by any stretch, but if we stay committed, we stay real, and we stay honest, we're pretty confident that we can get there and help our people the best we can.
Gavin, thank you very much. That was great. Some really good stuff there for people to learn from. I'm now going to hand over to Sinead Carville. Sinead is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Belfast-based financial services regulatory technology firm FinTrU. And FinTrU are a magnificent business, one that we at Belfast Chamber are very, very proud of its success. And it was recently recognized by the Financial Times as one of Europe's fastest growing companies. So well done to Sinead and Dara and the team on that achievement. Sinead, over to you to share FinTru's story around employee wellbeing. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Simon. Can I just check that my slides are visible?
They are, yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody, and like John and Gavin, I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to come and speak to you this morning. You always kind of wonder when you speak of these things, do we really have anything interesting to tell? So really my interesting bit, hopefully, is just to tell you about what our approach to employee wellbeing has been like pre-pandemic, but also post-pandemic, because the landscape has obviously changed considerably. And hopefully there's something that perhaps you can take away just from our approach to wellbeing in general. Just to give you a little bit of background, I guess, first of all, on FinTrU, to add to what Simon delivered there. So FinTrU is a financial services organisation. We have been established now for 6 years, so still a relatively young and relatively new organisation still, albeit in Northern Ireland, we're very well known at this stage in terms of our employee brand. We have had really rapid growth. So when I joined the organisation in 2016, there was 60 employees. We now have over 700. So that in itself it is obviously a huge success story, but it's definitely an organisation that requires you to work at very significant pace pretty much all of the time. And so a lot of our approach to wellbeing is to enable that growth and that kind of accelerated pace to thrive, and hopefully bring employees with us, as opposed to leaving kind of a wake of dead bodies behind us for fear of just going at such a pace that people can't keep up. So wellbeing is not just something we do at FinTrU because it's the right thing to do, but we also do it because it's a strategic advantage as well. And I think sometimes organizations that struggle for budget or buy-in or commitment, this is a real business benefit. Of course, it's the right thing to do, and that should be first and foremost the consideration, but it really has a benefit to your business in terms of attracting talent, retaining talent, and delivering for your clients, customers, depending on what sector you're in. So kind of pre-pandemic, we had a very strong approach to health and wellbeing at FinTrU. Back in 2017, we established our employee health and wellbeing committee called True Wellness. We branded it True Wellness. At that point in time, we actually did some work with Health Matters Northern Ireland to complete a bit of a diagnostic survey and kind of put a finger on the pulse around what employees' feelings were towards health and wellbeing, and particularly how they felt the organisation supported their needs and their desires, and where the gaps really were. And that was hugely helpful to us in terms of determining what our first year kind of establishing a wellbeing strategy should look like. And really what we did was we obviously identified a series of needs from our employees, and then from that, very similar actually to what Gavin's just presented in terms of that calendar of events, we started to look at what's our strategy and what are the initiatives or events that then can support the delivery of that strategy, and what are we looking to change. And the biggest piece for us was really around education, and that continues to be a key theme as part of our wellbeing strategy, is to really educate people. And really what we're trying to do is encourage employees to take small acts that are sustainable and build habits that lead to a greater sense of well-being. So we often look at kind of events, and we have speakers who come and say we'd like to talk about X, Y, and Z, but they involve very big changes that are difficult and sometimes feel like a bit of a mountain to climb. And we very much have the approach of small sustainable changes. So, if it's, encouraging employees to stop having sugar in their tea or coffee, it's not go to cold turkey. It's, well, could you reduce that? And that's kind of a small example of the ethos that we're trying to build. So our wellness committee is refreshed every year. We have a group of people that are elected to those positions, and they really act as champions across the organisation, and they try and help permeate what we're trying to do from a more strategic point of view, and make that actually a practical realisation for employees in the organisation. We also, in addition to the Wellbeing Committee, we had pre-pandemic, we had 3 trained mental health first aiders. And actually the pandemic has really opened up the response to them or the outreach to them for assistance. And I did a little bit of research with those guys this morning, and they told me that over the last year they've had 58 personal outreaches for assistance, which is pretty significant when you think about a lot of people who are dealing with mental health in particular don't often seek out that help or seek it out in a timely manner. So for me to have that level of outreach shows me the value of those mental health first aiders, and it's something that actually we're going to increase. We're probably going to add approximately 10 additional mental health first aiders over the next 12 months. So a very strong approach to health and wellbeing. It's probably an aspect of our culture that our employees value the most, and they actively engage in all of the activities that the committees deliver. In terms of COVID, and I'm really kind of putting this up here to kind of showcase the year that we've had as an organisation. I'll explain to you why. We're very aware that we've had a very successful year, our most successful year to date, our busiest from a client and revenue perspective, our biggest headcount growth. So last year we went from 425 employees to 700. We moved all of our financial services academies online, and we delivered more academies than we had initially intended to because of the demand from clients and the demand from job seekers. And we also delivered our first legal academy, and we launched a number of products, as you can see. And the reason, and we're very aware of how lucky we are to work in a resilient industry, and to work in a sector where employees could work from home, and to not have to go down some of the routes that other organisations had to deal with the impact of the pandemic. But I guess the real reason I'm kind of showcasing the year is all of the things John spoke very eloquently about at the start of the presentation in terms of what people were dealing with. This wasn't kind of just working from home or working remotely. You were working from home in the midst of a pandemic. And we had employees who, like John articulated, were homeschooling young children. We're maybe not even homeschooling, but we're nursing young babies. We had a lot of employees who were returning from maternity leave. And that was a whole different set of challenges. I mean, you can't, with the best will in the world, put an iPad in front of a 12-month-old baby and try and get on with your work. We had also a huge population of employees who were working in complete isolation, particularly in the first lockdown, who had nobody around them. So the levels of loneliness and isolation were really significant amongst that group. And so to then expect as an organisation that we would continue to be resilient and deliver, we had a big expectation placed on those employees, and so our support needed to really kind of increase, or the gear certainly needed to shift. This slide here gives you an overview of the recruitment over the last 12 months, so over 300 employees. And the breakdown I put on here specifically because to show you, I guess, that the biggest volume of new joiners were entry level. And this again was, and we've seen the biggest impact really in terms of mental well-being and just kind of general onboarding and settling has been from that entry level pool of individuals who have no experience of working in a professional environment, who want to get into the world of work for as much the social aspects as the professional, and who had that social kind of tap completely turned off. We have over 300 people who've never physically met a colleague, never set foot inside of our buildings, who that tacit learning that's so important, seeing somebody do something and do it well. They don't have that with the best will in the world. Teams and Zoom and screen sharing is great, but it's not the same as just observing somebody, take a phone call, deal with a challenging conversation. And so there's a lot of learning that's been missed in the same way as, our children have missed out over the last 12 months from a homeschooling perspective. Certainly mine have anyway, because I'm definitely not a good teacher, definitely better in the HR sphere. So we had a lot to deal with in terms of, we're still going to grow, but how do we mind our people and make sure that they can thrive and be okay over this period of time? So some of the first things that we did from a a remote team's perspective, like many organizations, this isn't rocket science or anything new. This is, I guess, just me telling you how we approached it. But we very quickly, and one thing to note as well in terms of FinTrU is, I said at the start of my talk that we were a very young organization. I think a lot of people assumed that we had a high volume of people working remotely before the pandemic. We had nobody working remotely. We had no home workers. Because our clients are investment banks, we always struggled to get the authority required to have people work outside of our secure environments, which we put a lot of work into in terms of our offices to secure those spaces for client engagements. So we had no experience of home working as an organization, so it was a massive shift for us to get everybody to home working, and all of the working practices were completely brand new to us. So we did a lot of work around, how do you manage people at home? How do you manage remote workers? What needs to change about the processes? So we didn't try and just take our pre-COVID processes, like our one-to-one processes or our catch-ups, and push them to the online world. We tried to kind of hack them and tear them apart and say, how does this need to be different? So, we often encourage, and we still encourage, particularly as the weather has now started to improve, go and have your catch up with your manager over a WhatsApp video call or a Teams call on your phone, and get out into the fresh air and go and have a chat. Just take advantage of some of the benefits that do exist from the fact that we're all forced to work in this way, and try and use it as a way to positively impact your day and impact your mood and your general mental health. Our level of communication has significantly increased. So at the start of the pandemic, we had a lot of conversations around, do we take out certain meetings? Do we remove certain meetings so people don't feel that they're constantly connected? And actually what we heard from employees is they wanted to see more, because those opportunities to just catch up with somebody as you're making a coffee in the canteen or as you're walking to the shop to get your lunch, they're gone at the moment. And so they needed that kind of orchestrated opportunity to meet with people, meet with seniors, meet with other colleagues. So we have completely increased the level of contact and communication that we have with our employees. Similar to Gavin, we have a centralized an intranet, if you like, with a dedicated health and wellbeing portal with access to all of our guidance and information. So through our kind of benefits offering to employees, they have a lot that they can access in terms of counselling and support, but also just some of the kind of the nice to have stuff. So there's a big piece that we did around parents specifically. We put a lot of resources and curated a lot of really good content for parents, so that they could kind of access something to keep their children engaged, or some lessons. And we also encouraged a lot in terms of children getting involved. Both Gavin and John referenced these little interrupters that often float into a Zoom call or a team call, which I have to be honest, I absolutely love. Mine do it all the time, and I think it's a lovely little insight. And again, one of the positives of the pandemic is I think we've seen everybody's life in a different way, which is really nice. But we've tried to support parents with different tools and techniques to manage all of that, and encourage it, and kind of make sure that we're very welcome into those situations, cognizant of the fact that is their home, and it's going to happen. We also very aware of how much over the last year people had a desire to do something that they put off. So maybe learn how to play a musical instrument, learn a language, read more, walk more, whatever that might be. And we tried to elicit feedback from people around what are some of the things that you would like to do that we could maybe help and support you with. So we delivered a lot of different sessions then from that feedback, to really help assist with some of that kind of personal development that people wanted to achieve over the last year or so. As I said, lots of different kind of connection opportunities. One of the things we introduced in January was a no meeting rule between 12 and 2 p.m. And that was very much around giving people the space to get outside, to go for a walk, to have lunch with their children, to do whatever they needed to go and get their groceries if that's what they wanted to do, but to just kind of carve out a window where there was no meeting, so people felt that during that period they didn't need to be so connected all of the time. Like many organizations, we also moved our social events online. I think that's something that we've seen over the last 12 months people do definitely struggle with. And I think at the start of the pandemic, there was an appetite for it. It was a novelty, and I think that novelty is definitely wearing a little bit thin, but it's there for people. And actually what we've tried to do more is give people a budget to have maybe smaller gatherings with their teams where they can just, you know, all order a pizza, have a beer, and catch up about how things are going. One of the things I would also kind of note is that in terms of what we've seen as an organization, in terms of particularly mental health, January was a huge tipping point for us, and a lot of the issues that we've seen since the start of this year, I think come from a point of view of people feeling like the end of 2020 was the door closed on COVID, and they were going to open up this door to a non-COVID world and everything's going to be very different, when in fact it wasn't. And in some respects it's been worse for people because they had a little bit of a taste of normality pre-Christmas, and then we're kind of thrust back into a very restricted lifestyle. And so we've seen people who were generally coping very well and who had always coped very well suddenly in a position where they weren't coping particularly well. And we've definitely had more issues to address from a one-to-one and personal perspective in terms of supporting some people who were struggling over the last few months. And I think it's something that, as we kind of go through what we don't know about this pandemic yet, is adapting and being willing to adapt. You might have this great strategy to approach mental health during this time, but being willing to always check in with it and see what's working well and what's not working so well, and make those adjustments where required. So one of the things we did as a result of that was we encouraged a lot more people to take time out of their day to contact their colleagues, very conscious of the fact that often if somebody is struggling, the mental health first aider or their manager is not who they'll go to. It's the person that used to sit beside them in the office that they confided in and chatted with. And so giving those people the permission to take time and have a cup of tea, and it doesn't need to be work related, it's just a chat and see how everybody's getting on, and also train people and really asking how people are, because I think a lot of people don't understand what a skill it is to really ask how somebody is, and not just maybe accept the first response that they receive. So we always have done a lot. We continue to do a lot, we I guess are very much led by our employees. So everything that you see in terms of what I've showcased on the last few slides are things that our employees say, we want you to do, this would help us. And a lot of it is about injecting fun, because I think that's the thing. It's that kind of thriving sense of community and fun that we all feel has been taken. And it's in some ways trying to not replicate it, but do something that does it justice, as in this very remote kind of environment. In terms of future considerations for us, this is something that we've always, since the start of the pandemic, had a COVID response team, and it's something that the team are very actively talking about at the moment. I think there's so much, and Gavin referenced it in terms of what's to come in terms of mental health, and we've all heard the term mental health tsunami and what's potentially coming down the line that we haven't even really foreseen. And I think for us, we also recognise that the last year hasn't been easy on anybody. I don't think there's a person you could meet on the street that would say it was a brilliant year for me. But for some people, it's been a better year than for others. And for a lot of people, myself included, it was a year that forced people to slow down in a way that nothing else would have. It was a year that forced people to reevaluate and reconnect with their homes, their families, some of the things, the simple things in life. And a lot of people have a huge sense of apprehension and stress around letting go of that and just going back from where they are now to where they were 12 months ago. Whether it be dealing with the daily commute, if that was a stressful situation for them, not being at home to have dinner with their families every evening because that's something they've benefited from, not being able to pick up their children from school. So all of that is exceptionally important in terms of our future considerations. And as I've referenced, we also plan to increase our mental health champions and first aiders, and also to try and retain some of the flexibility. So look at the benefits that COVID has given us and what can we retain that will really help enhance people's mental health and well-being. So that's a kind of a whistle-stop tour of what our approach has been, and like the guys, happy to take any questions.
Sinead, thank you very much for that. Again, some brilliant examples for people to learn from. So thank you for sharing that. John, if I could maybe ask a first question to yourself, and I just want to touch on the importance of leaders. And I think it was talked, I think really it was very clear during each presentation and very explicitly said that, it's important to embed improving well-being in the culture of a business, and that needs to flow from the top down. So some thoughts on how some of the leaders in businesses who are listening to this can do that, but also that important of that ensuring that they are looked after as well, because obviously a lot of businesses are in very, very difficult, challenging times. There's a huge amount of stress on the shoulders of leaders at this moment in time. So how can they look after their well-being as well as ensuring that their teams are looked after as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's two brilliant examples there of two organizations that really are walking the walk in this, without a doubt, in terms of that visibility. And I think, the examples that Sinead and Gavin have presented there, for me, resonate with all leaders in organizations. It is about, and I'm going to use the word courage, be brave and be courageous, and actually, look at it from the point of view of putting mental health and well-being as a core value for your organization. Make it a value and name it as part of your mission, your vision, your values, that mental health and well-being is really important. And start to take those steps personally, as I say, and talk about, not be afraid to talk to colleagues and individuals in work about how you personally are coping, because that will be a huge opportunity for the organization to start to support you. I know that whenever I, for example, have maybe had my own concerns, worries and fears about, my own performance or how things are working with the team, I will reach out. I'll set up a meeting, or we'll use it as part of one of the daily meeting or weekly meetings, and talk about it. And the amount of support and indeed ideas that I get from the team around people then saying about, input and ideas and solutions about how best to deal with whatever the issue is. It just naturally lifts you up into that space where you think, well, okay, actually, I can deal with this. And the point I made about stay in the moment, look about reaching out, maybe getting some help and support for yourself around coaching. Mindfulness, a lot of the mindfulness work that we do, and a lot of the compassionate workplace programs are designed around helping you as leaders to keep things in perspective, keep things real, think about what you can control what you can today and in the short term, and don't worry too much about the big picture, because the big picture can change, as we all know, very, very quickly. So be open and honest, be courageous, reach out for that support, talk to colleagues and your teammates about your own experiences, because trust me, they're all feeling it too. So there's nothing wrong with stepping up and saying, and you will create that psychologically safe culture in your organization, and you will feel a difference.
Yeah, I think that the point you made about controlling what you can is a good one for us all to remember. Gavin, your presentation was very clear that no one is doing business as usual at the moment. You're either working from home like FinTrU, or some businesses are closed, or they're facing huge restrictions in the way that Mount Charles has been. So I think you used the phrase staying apart. We are actually being actively encouraged by government to stay apart from each other, but yet the opposite of that is key, clearly, to ensuring that there's good well-being and resilience within any organization. So how have you tried to ensure that those kind of touch points, those all important touch points, that while we're all working separately and staying apart, that you still have that all important engagement, or at least the availability of that engagement to employees during this past year?
Yeah, I suppose a bit of a mixed response on that, Simon, because as much as we've had to stay apart, a lot of our team members have been considered key workers. So they have had to be out on that firing line, and that has created a little bit of extra vulnerability because they've had to go against the grain and do things that they wouldn't even think was safe to do so. So first off, mental health and well-being perspective, we surrounded them with safety, and we did everything we could in terms of touch point cleaning, PPE, all the training that they needed to be in that environment. And that was a really good first hit for us to say that we're here for you, and we don't want to put you in a position that makes you feel uncomfortable. So how can we make you feel comfortable? And given the nature of our business, catering and support services, we had to use technology then to fill that gap and digitally bring people closer together with campaigns and initiatives about really good things to make them feel connected. There's nothing can replace two human beings standing in front of each other and engaging, and we are so determined to get back to that as quickly as safely as possible, because we're a family-owned company and that's how we do business. But we do it when it's safe, and we just have to keep reminding people that we're there to help plug the gap.
And Sinead, you know, I think some phenomenal growth in FinTrU, and you know, to onboard that many people during the last year. I think if you had been told that you wouldn't be in the office working and yet you would have still seen that growth, and somebody had told you that about 18 months ago, you wouldn't have believed it. But you know, you talked about a lot about remote working and not being in the office, and working from home has started to feel like a lot more like living at work for many people. I think you described January as a tipping point for many people, and I think you're right. There was a sense that we were in for a better 2021, and then homeschooling hit with a vengeance, and you know, it all fell apart from there for many people. How important is that? Are you finding that? And you've tried obviously initiatives to substitute for not being in rooms and buildings and so forth. But how important are you seeing that social side of work? How important is that to office well-being? And I suppose also did you have any issues with people feeling a pressure to work remotely? You know, to be switched on and not off and working beyond their hours. Is that why you introduced that kind of, you know, that 12 to 2 initiative to stop, you know, to give people a bit of downtime and time to check out a little?
Yeah, so to cover off the first point around the social aspect, hugely important. And I think Gavin's absolutely right, that human connection actually face to face, you can't replicate it in this environment. And we are all very social by nature. And I think for us, there will be a return to the office. I definitely think it will be a hybrid model, because that's what our employees are telling us they want. It also enables, you know, some of the solutions around real estate that we would have challenges with. So, but I think there definitely is a huge place for the office and actually coming together to connect, to innovate together, to connect where appropriate, and to socialize. And as I said, the vast majority of our employees are hired via entry pipeline. So our average employee age is 26, and they really have a desire to connect socially, come together. We had a big kind of sporting culture, team sport culture at FinTrU that again is, you know, impossible to recreate in this environment. There's a real desire to get back to that. And yeah, definitely, I think in terms of coming together, I think it's hugely important that we do get that opportunity to get people back to the office when it is safe to do so. And
do you see that some of these initiatives, and obviously both yourself and Gavin were very clear that this was building on things that you've done before, but do you see that even more ingrained, that kind of social side into the work? I mean, it almost sounds a bit odd to talk about a business which is in business trying to you know, make a profit, trying to keep people in work, but that it's very sort of socially oriented. Do you see a lot of these initiatives that you've started during this past year just actually continuing and accelerating whenever we get back to whatever normal is going to be?
Yeah, I think so. We always had it in some format, so I absolutely think so. I think for us, it's a unique selling point. It's part of our culture, and it's what attracts people to come and work for us and to stay with us. The fact that they have social connections at work. is a huge retention piece. You know, they want to stay within that social circle. So again, it has a lot of business benefits, but you know, we'll always be dictated by what our employees are telling us they want in that experience. So yeah, as long as that's what they want, then definitely.
And same for you, Gavin. You see this kind of continuing as again, it was something that was there. You're building on things that have been in place. Do you see it really sticking and growing as part of what Mount Charles does?
Yeah, it's definitely flicked the switch, and it forced us to be creative in ways that we never thought we'd have to do before. But it's given people that opportunity and many projects to think, how can we keep people happy in ways that's not even possible? And the solutions and ideas and the feedback that we're getting is constantly evolving. So it's actually really, really exciting, because at times of problem solving, you come up with all these wonderful cracking things that you never thought was even possible. And when you see a project through from start to finish and you bring people involved along the way, that ownership and accountability and the success at the end of it's second to none, and it just genuinely puts a smile on everyone's face.
And talking about happiness today, the World Happiness Report has been published today, and for the third year in a row, Finland is apparently the happiest country in the world. And as I'm running the risk of getting blasted in the face by the sun again, I'm reminded that sunshine, as we were talking about earlier, very important to our happiness after a long, hard winter. But the one time I was in Finland, it wasn't the sunniest place in the world. So it's not everything. Something else is true. And I think it's that kind of connection and social contact that the workplace actually brings is incredibly important to everybody's well-being. John, let me just finish off with yourself. Obviously, Mount Charles and FinTrU have been started as very small organizations, have grown into quite large organizations in a Belfast context. But a lot of people who'll be listening are from smaller businesses and may not have the kind of bandwidth or capacity to do some of the initiatives that Sinead and Gavin and their teams have put in place. What lessons are there for smaller businesses to take from this, and how can organizations like Inspire help them?
Yeah, I think the principles are the same, Simon, at the end of the day. I think, even if you don't have a large HR department or a large kind of internal resource, there's lots of free online support services out there that organizations like ourselves, our own website, as I mentioned, is available. The COVID Wellbeing NI website is out there and available as well. And a lot of the community and voluntary sector organizations will offer a lot of support to smaller businesses as well. So I would encourage anybody to reach out, see what's there in terms of online support. The online delivery, I think we've all learned so much this year, without a doubt. We aren't going to go back to do things the way we did before. A CCIPD Ireland published a report this week that shows the majority of businesses in Ireland are saying they're going to probably have a blended model again of working from home as well as working in the office. So for me, I think, again, it's back to, even if you're a small business, accept the things you can do and what's achievable for you. Reach out and get some advice and guidance. People can come to ourselves and we can talk about resources that are available. We can signpost them to other areas. If we can't meet the needs straight away, we could signpost them to where else they might be able to get advice and support. But my advice would be, as I say, reach out, look online. There is a plethora of services now that have gone available online. Our own internal lead clinician, David Cameron, was doing some research looking at our own outcomes and statistics about the work that we have done, and we've seen that there are still really high, strong outcomes through online engagement, whether that be self-help, and as I mentioned, the likes of some of our guided self-help programs that are available through our own website and as well. So again, don't be thinking that I have to make a huge investment here, or I don't have a big infrastructure to turn to. There's a lot of support out there through, as I say, online resources and other organizations you can reach out to get a bit of help and advice. That would be my best tip at this stage.
Thanks, Sean. There's a final question that's come in from Roseanne Kelly from our friends at Women in Business, and she's pointed out how, and we're talking about homeschooling earlier, and how women have been hugely impacted by the pandemic and a lot of additional pressure on them. And she's asking, did any of the businesses do anything did Mount Charles or FinTrU do anything that was specifically for women, or indeed any other kind of vulnerable categories of workers? And she has also helpfully pointed out that Finland look after their women, which is absolutely, there are a lot of very family-friendly policies in that part of the world as well, which is maybe a contributor to that status. So Sinead, I think I did see that you did some events that were specifically focused on women. Was that deliberate?
No, so we didn't do anything additional, but what we did do is we made a determination at the start of all of this that none of our plans in terms of our gender diversity efforts would move, and we would continue on with everything that we had planned, and that has been realised. So one of our targets, for example, was to increase our applications to ideally reach a 50-50 gender split at graduate and entry level, and we have achieved that. So we've continued with all of our plans. What we have done, like the point that Roseanne makes, is very valid, and what we have done is we've done a lot of education internally about how the pandemic has impacted women, so there's an awareness of it. We are in a lucky position that that's not been the case for the females that work in our organisation, but the education around that, I think, is exceptionally important.
And likewise, Gavin, did any particular initiatives for vulnerable categories of workers?
It's the same approach, Simon. Again, we didn't go down the road of doing something completely separate for women, because we're so proud to have a large proportion of our workforce are female, and recognizing the strength and power and charisma they have across our company is second to none. So again, just an isolated incident that comes to mind was the working flexibility was something that we definitely paid attention to. This individual husband was a tradesperson, and the lady in question was a manager and two kids at home, right smack bang in the middle of homeschooling, and we said, look, flexibility working hours, you tell us what you can do and we'll work around it. And that really helped, because again, they didn't think they could even do it. So yeah, just not necessarily isolating it, but making sure all of the tools are there to help people.
Brilliant.
Regardless of gender.
Yeah, and I think that highlights some of the, again, another lesson that has come out of what has been a very difficult situation for everybody. So I just kind of want to wrap up there, and we've run a little beyond the hour, but hopefully people find that very, very useful. Some really, really good case studies there of best practice, and hopefully things that people can pick up and initiate in their own businesses. And obviously, if anybody does want any help or advice, please contact ourselves, and we can signpost you to John and his team, or I'm sure John will be happy if you want to check them out and contact them directly. It just leaves it then to me to wrap up and say thank you to John and Gavin and Sinead for their time in making their time available this morning, and also sharing with us all of those insights into their businesses. And thank you very much for doing that. We're all very grateful for that. I just want to also thank Neil and the team at ND Events for making this run so seamlessly this morning. And finally, I just wanted to encourage everybody to go to our website, belfastchamber.com, and look at our events calendar. There's a pretty packed calendar of events over the next couple of months, and I want to highlight particularly our event next Friday, the 26th at 12 noon. It's the first in our Re-Energizing Belfast series, which we're delivering in partnership with Belfast law firm Carson McDowell. The first in the series is entitled The Future of Work. We're going to have a look at Rapid7, a US cybersecurity based in Belfast. They're absolutely fantastic new offices right in the heart of Belfast. We're going to look at Titanic Quarters, Olympic House, and we're also going to hear from Glandor about flexible workspace in the city. So you can go online onto our website and register for that right now, and hopefully we'll see some of you at that next week. So just again, finally, just thank you to John, thank you to Sinead, thank you to Gavin for your time, and thank you to everybody for attending this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. All the best. Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.